are seeing this in your news every day unfolding before your eyes, and this could turn into all-out war any hour, any day. This is Ezekiel 38. The word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and prophesy against him and say, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and lead you out with all your army, horses and horsemen, all splendidly clothed, the great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya are with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all its troops, the house of Togarmah from the far north and all its troops, many people are with you. Prepare yourself and be ready, you and all your companies that are gathered about you, and be a guard for them. After many days you will be visited. In the latter years you will come into the land of those brought back from the sword and gathered from many people on the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate. They were brought out of the nations, and now all of them dwell safely. You will ascend, coming like a storm, covering the land like a cloud, you and all your troops and many peoples with you. So let me first of all, so this is the Gog and Magog war. This is commonly referred to as the Gog and Magog war. And so I'm going to talk about when it's going to occur, but I want to begin by talking about who are these people? Who are these nations that God is referring to? Well, Gog is a person. Magog is the land of Gog. And so he begins by addressing, this is mainly addressed to Gog. And it says, you're the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. So Gog is a very, very powerful nation, very powerful person. I believe it's Russia. Now, Joel Richardson, who is an end times expert, I interviewed him, and you're going to be seeing those interviews in upcoming programs. I have a great amount of respect for him. Now, he believes that Gog is Turkey, and I'll talk about Turkey here in just a minute. But I believe it's Russia, and I believe that for a couple of reasons. One is historically, but I also believe it because look at the Middle East right now. The strong man in the Middle East isn't Turkey. It isn't Iran. It's Russia. And Iran and Turkey are very powerful nations on their own. But Russia is the kingpin in the Middle East, and Russia is in Syria right now. I mean, this is real time. This is happening. Okay, so the second main country listed here is Persia. Persia is Iran. Iranians are not Arabs, they're Persians. And so old, ancient Persia is modern day Iran. Number 3 is Ethiopia, and that would be the modern nation of Sudan. Some parts maybe of actual Ethiopia, but mainly the Sudan. Now the Sudan has been making peace with Israel, but Secretary of State Mike Pompeo pressured them to make amends with Israel to get them off of the watch list because it's a terror state. So the peace that's being made between the Sudan and Israel is not a real strong peace. It's very fragile, especially when Muslims go to war against Israel. Libya is Libya, and it may be areas of Algeria and Morocco also. Gomer is Turkey, maybe some of Germany. Now, some people think it's Germany, and Germany is a very strong trading partner with Iran, but I believe that it is Turkey. And then Togarmah from the far north is Turkey. Let me show you the map here, and this will give you a good idea. And so when you look at the Middle East, this is Russia up in here, Gog and Magog. You have to remember now, of the old Soviet Union, this area of the old Soviet Union was all Muslim. And so the former Soviet Union, half of it was Muslim. And so then you see, this is Israel here, Iran is Persia. This will also include areas of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. This is Turkey up here. When it says from the far north, this is directly north of Israel. It's also, Russia is directly north of Israel here. If Gomer is Germany, that would be over here. I really don't believe it is, though. And then you have Libya over here, and you have Ethiopia over here, which is modern-day Sudan. And so you can see these are all regional areas around Israel where these countries are going to come from. Well, the interesting thing is they're all aligned today. They're all of these nations are aligned with Russia and with one another.
Who could Magog possibly be? And who are these allies that march with her? It is believed by many that Magog is speaking of modern day Russia. Why is this believed? Well, Magog was the second son of Japheth, who according to the ancient Jewish historian Josephus settled north of the Black Sea. Tubal and Meshach, also mentioned here in Ezekiel 38, were the fifth and sixth sons of Japheth, whose descendants settled south of the Black Sea. These tribes intermarried and became known as Magog. They settled to the north of Israel. In Ezekiel 39:2, God says to them, I'll turn you and drive you toward the mountains of Israel, bringing you from the distant north. So all Bible directions are given in relation to Israel. And if you look to the extreme north of Israel today, you'll find the mighty nation of Russia. Now, here's where it really gets interesting. Look at the allies that march with Russia. We have Ethiopia. That would be modern-day Sudan, an Islamic area. Libya, guess who Libya is? Libya is Libya. Muammar Gaddafi. We know of his anti-Israeli feelings that he's made very clear. Persia is modern Iran. These are all Islamic cultures. They're all anti-Israel. Russia has five arms deals in play right now with Libya. And here's an interesting thing about Persia. It wasn't until March 21st, 1935 that Persia changed her name to what we now call Iran. And here is this alliance that God says will form. So all of these things coming together in an amazing way. The return of the Jews to their homeland, the return of Jerusalem to the Jews in their homeland, this large force from the north of Israel marching toward her with the ally of Iran, who has only recently become an ally of Russia. Did you know that Russia recently signed a $1 billion deal to sell missiles and other weapons to Iran? There's over 1,000 Iranian nuclear scientists that have been trained in Russia by Russian scientists. A recent news article that I just read said, quote, the Russian deputy foreign minister says Russia is determined to, quote, boost its military technical ties with Iran, end quote. This was prophesied in the Bible.